The 38 Steps, written by Samantha Faulkner, narrated by Alison Campbell. There is a man lying in a pool of blood in front of the sofa. I am pretty sure he wasn't there 10 minutes ago when I nipped out to buy a paper. He looks in a pretty bad way. He is about 35, fair-haired and rather attractive, apart from the large bullet hole in the centre of his belly. He regards me in alarm as I step through the doorway. Oops, my trench coat has just come undone. I must find myself some proper clothes. Quickly, I button it up and step across to the dying man. Who are you? He mumbles, his hands clutching his bloody stomach. I am not sure if he is British or American. His accent is distinctly transatlantic. A friend, I tell him, crouching down in front of the sofa. It seems like the right thing to say. I do a quick scan of his wounds. It doesn't look good. The blood has dribbled down from his lap onto the carpet. Honey, you're in a bad way. The man nods unhappily. His eyes flick past me to the entrance hall. They found me, he stutters, staring through the open doorway. They'll come back, and they'll kill you if they find you here. Who are they, I wonder? Who did this to you? He draws in a laboured breath. The Black Rock. The man with the missing finger. The what? The missing finger? I think his mind must be going. No time to explain. You must warn the government. They'll kill him if you don't. His eyes are flashing about all over the place. I'm not sure if he can even see me anymore. Beware the 38 steps. With these words and a final, terrifying shudder, his head slumps back onto the leather upholstery. I let out a sigh. I have seen my fair share of death, but it always saddens me when a good-looking bloke breathes his last. Unfortunately, I haven't got a clue what he was babbling on about. Why do dying men always have to be so cryptic? I lean over his body to close his eyes, and as I do so, I notice a small notebook peeping out of his jacket pocket. I grab it and have a quick flick through, but all I can see on the crisp white pages are a random selection of letters and numbers. No, actually, it's not random. It is written in code. A substitution cipher, I think. I have a bit of software somewhere that should be able to decrypt that. I activate the relevant subroutine. It's good to know my systems are still in decent working order. I have been away from the repair shop for a horribly long time. Though, of course, chronologically speaking, the repair shop hasn't even been built yet. My time machine, the chronocapsule, popped into existence in the basement of a crumbling apartment block about half an hour ago. The building doesn't exist in my time. It was pulled down to make way for a department store. Oddly enough, I will be employed in that very store, Burlington's of Knightsbridge, in about 55 years' time. I'm not really a shop girl, though. I am a Fembot, a sophisticated humanoid robot, and at the moment I am horribly lost. I arrived here mid-morning, fresh from 1793, stepping out of the time machine in a rather colourful set of 18th century clothes. An electric light fitting told me I had travelled at least 120 years closer to my own time, though I couldn't be sure of the exact date. For some reason, the chronocapsule isn't fitted with a yearometer. Everything seemed quiet inside the building. Most of the residents were probably out at work. I found a hat and coat in the hallway, stripped off my period robes, and hurried out into the street. A news vendor a couple of 100 yards away was bellowing the day's headlines, and the front page of the Times gave me the date, June the 12th, 1914. 3 months before the outbreak of World War I. Coming back to the apartment block, I nearly collided with a couple of ill-mannered oafs out on the street. They were a grim-looking pair, and neither of them bothered to apologise. One had a bent nose and cauliflower ears, the other a pronounced squint. If I had been paying attention, I would have noticed the bulge in their raincoat pockets and realised they were armed. As it was, I was too intent on getting back to the time machine to spare them a second glance. Now that I have the precise time and date, I can flick the time rotor in the chronocapsule and shift myself closer to the present day. I think I am beginning to get the hang of the controls. One more trip, and I might even manage to materialise back in the lab. I am looking forward to having a few sharp words with Professor Llewellyn. He is the man who got me into this mess in the first place. It was as I made my way back through the entrance hall towards the cellar that I heard a low moan coming from upstairs. My first instinct was to ignore it, but it sounded like someone was in real trouble. I hoofed it up to the second floor and quickly discovered the man with the bullet in his stomach. I had heard a muffled thud in the distance when I was flirting with the news vendor, but I had assumed it was a door being slammed. The killer must have covered the gun with a heavy blanket or a coat. I suppose I ought to call the police. There is a telephone on the table next to the sofa. Abruptly, it rings, and without thinking, I pick up the receiver. It seems rude not to. Knightsbridge 1970, I say, reading the number on the dial. Idly, I pocket the notebook. There is a pause on the other end of the phone, and then a silky voice. Who am I speaking to? I hesitate. I'm Sally. Sally Shagwell. There is another pause. People often react that way when I tell them my name. My creator, Dr. Eugene Lovelace, had a particularly warped sense of humour. Stay right where you are, the man on the phone instructs me. I don't like his tone. I move over to the front window and look out through the net curtains onto the street. There is a telephone box about 50 yards away, a rare London prototype. A sinister-looking man is standing inside the box, holding the receiver in his left hand. 2 associates, the unfortunate-looking fellows I bumped into in the street, are smoking cheap cigarettes outside the box. I hear a click as the man replaces the receiver, and I watch as he steps out of the cubicle. He looks up casually at the window where I am standing, his dark, black eyes glinting in the mid-morning sun. He smiles at me coldly across the street and raises his right hand in greeting. The hand is missing a finger. I step back rapidly from the window. This is the man I have been warned about, the one responsible for the corpse on the sofa. He must have seen me entering the building after his associates came out. I am beginning to regret answering the phone. I put the receiver back in its cradle. I doubt the man can see me through the nets, but he obviously knows I am here. The trio are already heading back to the apartment block. I do a quick mental calculation. There are 2 flights of stairs between me and the cellar, and there is only one access point. 2 of the men, the grunts, have already broken into a run. I can hear their feet clomping across the pavement outside. They'll reach the entrance hall before I get to the bottom of the stairs, and I already know that they are armed. I could probably take them. I have an advantage in speed and agility, but it isn't worth the risk. I am not exactly bulletproof. There must be another way out of here. I glance around the flat. A back window overlooks a communal garden, but there is no fire escape that I can see. Footsteps are already creaking up the first flight of stairs. 2 pairs of size 11 boots. Oh well, no choice now. I scramble over the sofa, trying not to kick the dead man, then pull open the far window and hurl myself through the gap. I plummet a good 20 feet, but land well in a rosebush on the near side of the garden. I ignore the thorns and quickly make my way along the rear wall to a covered pathway leading back onto the main street. A milkman is leaning against the brickwork, having a quick cigarette. He gets the shock of his life as I round the corner. My coat falls open. A couple of buttons were ripped off by that rosebush, and he gets a flash of freshly laundered 1960s underwear. The poor lamb barely has a chance to boggle before a karate chop knocks him to the ground. A milk cart is hardly an ideal getaway vehicle, especially when it is tied to the back of a horse. Beggars, however, cannot be choosers. I am just glad there are now several metal crates between me and those armed thugs. The milk costume has done the trick and rendered me almost invisible, even to their falcon-like eyes. I didn't have time to strip the milkman completely. More's the pity. He was an athletic-looking bloke. But I managed to get hold of the trousers, the jacket, and the hat, not to mention the pleasantly bulging satchel. I left my trench coat behind, in lieu of payment. The horse knows the difference, though. He is a surly brute, a couple of years away from the knacker's yard, if I am any judge, and resenting every step. His top speed seems to be about 3 miles an hour. Roll on the invention of the electric milk float, that's what I say. I risk a look round and catch a last glimpse of the 2 grunts, returning to the pavement outside and scratching their heads. The third man has left them behind and is re-entering the building from the front. I can hear his voice angrily berating them. I just hope the noise doesn't rouse the milkman. If he wakes up and gives the game away, I am done for. I get about half a mile before I hear a whistle being blown in the distance. A police whistle. I can't be sure, but I think the body in the flat has now been discovered. The man with the missing finger must have rung the police from the lobby. Clever sod. I bet I get the blame for his death. I'll be public enemy number 1 by tea time. Things just get better and better. I pull out the notebook from the milkman's satchel, where I stuffed it, and try to make sense of everything that has happened so far. My decryption software hasn't reported back yet, so there are still more questions than answers. Who was the dying man, and who did he believe was about to be assassinated? And, more to the point, what the hell was I doing answering that phone? One thing is certain. When I get back to my own time, I am going to take a rather large axe to Professor Llewellyn's time machine. One piece of good luck. The milkman's satchel contains almost 50 shillings. He must have been out collecting fees this morning. I have enough money to buy a train ticket and a change of clothes. I can't go back to the flat. It will be crawling with policemen by now. And I can't carry on posing as a milkman either. The shop assistant gives me a very strange look when I nip into the clothes store. If there had been a telephone on the premises, I think she would have called the police as well. I suppose there aren't that many female milkmen in 1914. I find a public lavatory, perform a quick change, and half an hour later am on the Flying Scotsman, chugging slowly out of London. My decryption software has finally reported back, and, having scanned the results, I have decided it is a good idea to get as far away from the capital as possible. Even in translation, the contents of the notebook are decidedly odd. The dead man was a Mr. Robert Ashcroft. He was on the trail of a gang of sinister Prussians, apparently, who he believed were about to assassinate Archduke Leopold of Transurania. Why these Prussians would want to assassinate an Archduke isn't made clear. Perhaps they are trying to destabilize the region. That isn't the end of their plans, however. According to Ashcroft, they are also intending to infiltrate an upcoming Anglo-French summit, a naval summit, in order to steal intergovernmental secrets. If these plans fall into the hands of the Germans, he asserts, the First World War will be lost before it has even begun. I sit back in my seat as the greenery of England whizzes by and consider the credibility of Ashcroft's notes. It all sounds like so much hogwash to me. I would be happy to dismiss it as such, if Ashcroft himself hadn't just been murdered. Who these sinister Black Rock people are, and what the significance is of the 38 steps, I have no idea. IOWF 1430 38 steps, it says at the back of the notebook. Even my decoding software can't make head nor tail of that. I wonder if the man with the missing finger is aware of the existence of this notebook. I have a nasty feeling he must be. He did seem rather annoyed with those two grunts of his. They really should have seen the book poking out of Ashcroft's jacket pocket. I suppose that is what comes of sending in monkeys to do an organ grinder's job. I wouldn't put it past them to find out what train I caught, though, if they are really intent on following me. I will have to be careful. I swap tracks 3 times on my way north, just to keep them on their toes. I even skip out onto the rails when the train stops between stations. It is just as well they haven't got around to electrifying the tracks. According to the notebook, the Anglo-French meeting is due to take place at the beginning of next week. If I stay out of the way until then, things will probably cool down. In the meantime, I might as well head as far north as possible. Then I can return to London on Tuesday or Wednesday, retrieve the chronocapsule, and head back to my own time. Actually, I quite fancy a few days in the Highlands of Scotland. I wonder what the weather will be like. The rain hasn't stopped in almost 3 hours. I have had to enter full lockdown mode to prevent the water getting into my circuits. Fembots do not react well to water, for obvious reasons. I slipped off the train before it got anywhere near Glasgow. My plan was to cross the moors on foot, in one last effort to avoid being followed. This is turning out to be something of a mistake. The place is a mud bath, and I can barely see the ground in front of me. I was right to be cautious, though. I picked up a paper on the outskirts of Edinburgh first thing this morning and saw a stop press note about the murder of Robert Ashcroft. The police want to interview a young woman who was seen fleeing the scene in a milk cart. The owner of the cart got a good view of me, apparently, and not just my M&S knickers. So, the forces of law and order will be scouring the entire country looking for me. As, presumably, will the Black Rock. I give up trying to navigate through the mud and sit down on a boulder to wait out the rain. It will be dark in a few hours, and there is no sign of any habitation. The rain seems to be easing off, though. I wish I had thought to bring a coat with me. I didn't think I would need it in the middle of June. But this is Scotland. They don't have a summer here. My clothes are soaked through, and the corset I'm wearing seems designed to pinch in every possible place. I think I preferred the 18th century garb. At least that had a bit of colour to it. As the rain clears, I hear a faint hum in the distance, a strangely artificial hum. It takes me a moment to place it, and then I jerk backwards in surprise. A small wooden biplane is clipping the bottom of the cloud line half a mile away. Someone is up there, flying in this weather. They must be crazy. I cannot be sure, but I have a nasty feeling it is the Black Rock. They have come looking for me, just as I suspected they would. They must have had a tip-off from someone that I was in the area. I rise to my feet and quickly upload the entire history of aviation from my internal data store. In 1914, aeroplanes were a rare sight and useless for anything other than aerial reconnaissance, it says. They certainly weren't fitted with machine guns, not until the First World War. That, at least, is reassuring. If the Black Rock are flying towards me, they can get a good look, but they can't start taking pot. A bullet whistles past my ear. Several bullets, in fact. A machine gun is firing at me from on high. So much for the history books. I peer upwards and zoom in on the plane. The aircraft must be an experimental model. A gunman is sitting in the rear seat behind the pilot, grasping a heavy-duty Bronheim machine gun. I don't have a clear view of the pilot, but I recognize the gunner. It is the thug with the bent nose. He is certainly versatile, I'll give him that. I just have to hope his aim is off. It can't be easy firing on the move like that, with the gun poking out of the side of the plane. By a strange coincidence, I am also fitted with Bronheim machine guns, and rather more sophisticated ones than those on the plane. Unfortunately, my boobs have been out of ammo for weeks, so I cannot return fire. There is nothing else for it. I will have to run. Bullets scud across the ground towards me as I pelt hell for leather across the moor. I can run pretty quickly when I want to, but not fast enough to outrun a biplane. The vehicle swoops down towards me, throwing up a line of earth across my path. A misplaced foot sends me flying through the air. I crash into the mud and lay stock still. I am a sitting duck. But perhaps if I don't move, they will think I am dead. I hold my breath and fix my arm at an awkward angle. They have at least stopped firing. The plane swoops around and down again to get a closer look. There is nowhere for them to land, so they will have to return on foot to verify the kill. Unbelievably, they accept the evidence of their eyes. I can hear Bentnose giggling over the hum of the propeller as the biplane arcs around and disappears off into the distance. I give it 5 minutes, until the aircraft is out of sight, and then pull myself up from the dirt. My dress, already wet through, is now covered in mud. I am tempted to strip off completely, but I know early 20th century Scotland is a rather conservative place, and I don't want to draw attention to myself. "Are you all right, lass?" A short, stocky Highlander is watching me from a groove between 2 low hills. He can't have been there long. I am surprised the biplane didn't see him. He makes no move to help me. He is an odd-looking man with a full red beard and a rough-hewn shirt. His legs are devilishly hairy beneath his orange and black kilt. "I've had better days," I say, brushing myself down and moving towards him. My hair is covered in mud as well. I dread to think what I must look like. "Where did you spring from?" "I live here, just over there." He jerks his thumb back between the two hills. He speaks with a thick Scots accent. Fortunately, I have met enough Scottish people to be able to understand and replicate the dialect. If I am not to draw attention to myself, it is better for me to pass myself off as one of the locals. "Hoots, mon," I say. "It's a braw-bricht moonlit nicht the new." He stares at me quietly for a moment. "So, you're from London, then?" Yes. I try not to sound disappointed. "What are you doing out here on the moors? It's no place for a wee lassie." I glance down at my clothes. No, I was rapidly coming to that conclusion. "Did you see the plane?" "Aye." He nods. "Aeroplanes in Scotland. Whatever will they think of next?" I can't resist baiting him. "Men on the moon?" "Don't be daft, lass." He scowls. "The moon's 240,000 miles away. You'd fall asleep before you got there." Right. Sorry, I'm babbling. I think the men in that plane were trying to kill me. "Aye, I got that impression when they opened up with that Bronheim machine gun." This fellow is clearly brighter than he looks. "And I reckon they'll be back soon enough." Yes. I flutter my eyelashes and peer at him expectantly. The standard damsel in distress routine. But he still doesn't offer to help. I don't suppose there's anywhere nearby where I could freshen up and maybe hide? Well, yes. He jerks his thumb again. "You're in luck. There's an inn just half a mile east of here. The name's Buchanan, by the way. Douglas Buchanan." He extends a rough, calloused hand. Douglas Buchanan, it turns out, is the owner of the inn in question. I almost do a double take when I see the sign swinging in the breeze. The 36 steps. I am a sucker for a coincidence, but a quick review of Ashcroft's notebook tells me that this isn't the number I'm looking for. "You'll be wanting to get out of those wet things," Buchanan observes as we move into the gloomy reception area. My dress is clinging rather tightly to me, but the Scotsman eyes me up with a cool indifference, as if he is examining a worn carpet he is thinking of getting replaced. "My niece can probably lend you some clothes, but they may be a little big for you." His eyes rest disapprovingly on my hips. "You're a bonny wee lass, but there's no meat on you. We'll have to feed you up." "I don't think I need any feeding," I tell him petulantly. "My arse is big enough as it is." I glance down at his kilt. "Don't your legs get cold, wearing that?" Buchanan shakes his head. "You'd be surprised how warm a kilt can be." I flash him a grin. "And is it true what they say about Scotsmen?" He ignores the question. "You can change upstairs." He really is a dour fellow. And sadly, he doesn't lead the way, so I don't get the chance to have a look for myself. There is a tap on the second floor, and Buchanan fills a bucket of water for me. He lingers politely outside the bedroom door as I strip down, wash, and grab the clothes his niece has provided. Hannah is away visiting her parents, apparently, and Buchanan tells me to help myself to anything suitable. The underwear is grotesque, yet more corsets. I don't think anyone has got around to inventing anything like a bra as yet. And as for the knickers, well, at least they are clean, I suppose. "What were you doing out on the moors on your own?" Buchanan asks through a crack in the door. "And why did those people want to kill you?" It's a long story. I don't suppose you've got a revolver anywhere in this place, have you? "Ugh, they won't be coming back here tonight. You'll be safe enough tucked up in bed. But we'll get a bit of food into you first. Don't want you wasting away. Buchanan is a surprisingly good cook. My plate is piled high with boiled fish, haggis, meat and potatoes. My atomic power unit is having trouble breaking it all down, but my taste receptors are impressed. A slug of whiskey and a roaring fire add to the rugged atmosphere. We talk as we eat, and Buchanan listens politely with a mouthful of haggis as I tell him all about my recent adventures. Not about the time travel, of course, just about the body I stumbled across in London, and me being chased halfway across Britain. So, they think you're a murderer, Buchanan concludes, leaning back in his creaking wooden chair. With good reason, I say. But it's not the police I'm worried about. He scratches his beard thoughtfully. And you think there may be some truth to this notebook you found? It's difficult to tell, but the more they want to kill me, the more I want to find out. Buchanan nods grimly, but there is the ghost of a twinkle in his eye. So, why is this place called the 36 Steps? I ask him, now that we are properly acquainted. Buchanan pours me out another slug of whiskey. Oh, can you no count, lass? There are 4 flights of stairs inside the building, and each one has 9 lots of steps. Right. 4 times 9. It's an odd coincidence, though. You're sure you don't know anything about this Black Rock organisation? He shakes his head and pushes back his dinner plate. I wish I did. He stretches his arms above his head, then rises to his feet and moves across to the hearth. I glance down at his thick, hairy legs as he stands silhouetted against the fire. The hem of his kilt is almost down to his knees, but there's no way of telling if he's wearing any underwear, even with the light flickering through the fabric. A large stag's head rests above the fireplace, but Buchanan's attention is focused on a wooden box lying on top of the mantelpiece. He picks the box up and brings it over to the table. Inside is an old service revolver, which he pulls out and loads. It's only got the 1 round of ammunition, he says, handing the gun across to me. But I think you're probably going to need it. A motorcar draws up outside the inn at 8:30 the following morning. I jump out of bed and risk a quick glimpse out of the second-floor window. There are 3 men getting out of the car, all in finely cut suits. I recognise them at once. Bent Nose and Mr. Squint, the thugs I narrowly avoided back in London, and their boss, the man with the missing finger. Not content with stalking me in their biplane, they are now checking up on the local hostelries. I knew I shouldn't have stayed the night here. It might have been worth it if Douglas Buchanan had crept into my bedroom. Then I could have seen for myself exactly what he keeps under that kilt of his. But when I threw the man a suggestive look and wished him good night, he just grunted and disappeared off to bed, locking his door firmly behind him. I think I may be losing my touch. All this time travelling must have degraded my flirtation software. I have been trying my best, but he seems completely immune to my charms. If I can't register a flicker of interest before I leave here today, I will have to turn in my Fembot seduction licence. A bell rings downstairs, heralding the arrival of the 3 men. I pull the bedroom door open a crack and listen as Buchanan greets them with apparent friendliness. What can I do for you, gentlemen? Will you be wanting a room? No, we won't be stopping. I recognise the voice of the man I spoke to on the telephone in London. I retrieve an image of his face from my memory core. He is a handsome devil with a firm jaw, full nose, and deep, penetrating eyes. The snapshot is frozen with him raising his right hand to me. It is the little finger that is missing. "I'm trying to trace an Englishwoman," he tells Buchanan, "who arrived here yesterday afternoon. Blonde, about so high. Her name is Miss Sally Shagwell." "Aye, I know her," the Scotsman replies nonchalantly. "She stayed here last night." If I had a heart, it would have just missed a beat. The Englishman is equally nonplussed. "Here, in this inn?" he asks incredulously. I am guessing they have been combing the entire area. They must have got up pretty early this morning. "Aye, room number 4, Buchanan confirms. I glance at the number on my door. It is number 4, of course. Surely he's not going to tell them I'm here. "Soaked to the bone she was. I had to lend her some of my niece's clothes." "Is she still here?" the man asks, doubtless trying not to salivate. "I'm afraid no. She left at first light. Said she was heading back to Aberdeen." I allow myself a quick smile. "I don't know how she intends to get there," he adds. "I think she was planning to head across country." There is a slight pause as the villainous trio digest this information. Buchanan certainly sounds convincing, bless him, but they will surely want to check. "I don't suppose she left anything behind in her room?" Missing Finger asks. "She's wanted as part of a police investigation. Perhaps we could take a look." Buchanan thinks quickly. "I'm afraid the room's been let out again. The McTaggart sisters. They've just checked in. But I can go and ask them, if you're prepared to wait." "That would be very kind," the gentleman responds smoothly. The Scotsman clomps up the 2 flights of stairs, but knocks politely before entering the bedroom. He grimaces as he meets my eye. "You heard all that?" he asks in a whisper. I nod grimly. "Give them this," I say. I have scribbled something on a bit of paper. He looks down at the note. The 38 steps. IOWF 1430. I chuckle quietly. Straight out of Ashcroft's notebook. That should set the cat among the pigeons. "Aye." Buchanan turns tail and thumps back down the stairs. "I found this under the bed," he lies brazenly. "I don't know if it means anything to you." There is a muffled exclamation of surprise. "Looks like you were right, boss," one of the grunts mutters. "And you're sure she left at first light?" Missing Finger inquires. "Aye, she did, heading north. I tried to warn her about the moor, but she's a headstrong lass." "Well, thank you for your help, anyway." "It was no trouble, gentlemen." I listen closely as the 3 villains depart. There are footsteps on the gravel, and then a car door slamming. The engine starts, and in good order the automobile speeds away. I wait a couple of minutes, and then make my way downstairs. Buchanan is standing over by the reception desk, scribbling some notes in a ledger. I move across to him. "Thank you, Douglas," I say. He glances up. "That would be Mr. Buchanan to you. But it was a pleasure, lass." He doesn't quite manage a smile. "I didn't like the look of that Englishman. Black eyes he had. A dangerous fellow if I'm any judge." "Yes, I think you may be right." Buchanan closes his ledger and moves around the desk, staring uneasily out through the frosted glass at the front of the inn. "He'll be back, mind, before too long. Safer for you if you're not here when he returns." He is probably right. Isn't that typical? I come all the way up to Scotland to avoid trouble, and it follows me right here. I suppose I really ought to inform somebody in authority about those 3 men. They are clearly up to no good. But if I go to the police, they will throw me in jail and then probably hang me for murder. I trawl my internal databanks, trying to find an alternative option. In my own time, I work as a special agent for British intelligence, and my memory core contains a rather neat potted history of the organisation. I quickly scroll through a list of names and addresses from this time period. One in particular stands out, a rather senior bod in London. I could contact him if needs be. But first, I need to give the Black Rock the slip. I pull out Ashcroft's notebook and hand it to Buchanan. I want you to take this, I tell him. If I get captured, it's better those men don't get hold of it. If anything happens to me, I need you to send it to an address in London. The Scotsman looks dubious. I can give you money for the postage. Oh, I can probably run to a stamp, he responds tartly. Where do I send it? I check the address. 3rd floor, 36 Victoria Street, London. And who should I address it to? Just put the Colonel. They'll know what you mean. But don't post it before tomorrow. I'll try and throw those men off the scent, and then come back for it, if I can. I hope you do, lass, for your sake. I place a hand on the top of the notebook, which he is now grasping firmly. Just handling this might put your life in danger, Mr. Buchanan. He shrugs that off easily. I'm used to danger. I was with the Seaforth Highlanders in South Africa. That explains the revolver. Sending a parcel to London will be a piece of cake. Thank you, mister. Oh, to hell with formality. Thank you, Douglas. I lean forward and kiss his heavily bearded cheek. Buchanan doesn't flinch, but when I pull back, I swear I see him blush. So, he is not immune to my charms after all. I stifle a grin and glance down at his kilt, but I resist the temptation to pinch him on the bum. One step at a time. I'd better be off. Buchanan clears his throat. Don't you want any breakfast first? He asks incredulously. You need to get something warm into you before you head out onto the moors. I think I'll do without the porridge this morning, I say. I pick my way across the moors, heading north by northwest towards the nearest village. Perhaps I can catch a bus there and put a bit of distance between myself and my pursuers. The burr of a plane becomes audible in the distance, but I duck down out of sight amid a tangle of bramble. I have no desire to be shot in the arse 2 days running. The aircraft passes overhead without seeing me. Eventually I find the road leading into town and, to my surprise, I hear another engine approaching, this time a motor vehicle. Thankfully, it is not the car that pulled up outside the inn this morning. This one is an open-topped affair, a brave decision in Scotland, and the cheerful young aristocrat behind the wheel beeps his horn at me and pulls up alongside. I say, he exclaims, you don't happen to know the way to Glen Shellac? The man has a thin moustache and the most ridiculous upper-class accent I have ever heard. I'm meant to be there by 2 o'clock giving a lecture, don't you know? I'm the prospective Member of Parliament for this county. I suppress a laugh. As a matter of fact, I was heading in that direction myself. I have never heard of Glen Shellac, but it sounds as good a place as any to head for. The route is marked in my internal A to Z of Scotland. I can show you the way if you like. It is the 1969 edition, but some of the roads must have existed in 1914. The man leans across and opens the side door. "Hop in," he says. "Name's Davenport. Charles Davenport. Charlie to my friends." "Sally. Sally Shagwell." I thump down next to him in the passenger seat and extend a hand. "Good Lord! Shagwell, eh?" He raises an eyebrow. "Not one of the Devonshire Shagwells?" I shake my head. "So, what's a pretty gal like you doing in this part of the world?" "I'm on the run from the police," I tell him. "They think I murdered that man in Knightsbridge." "Good show," Davenport chuckles. He thinks I am joking. "You must be an actress, then. Music hall star, are you?" I laugh good-naturedly. "Something like that." He revs up the engine and puts his foot on the accelerator. The car lurches forward with an embarrassing crunch of gears. The road ahead is narrow and several blind bends appear in rapid succession. Vehicles don't exactly speed in this time period, but Davenport is determined to get the most out of his engine. Not that he's paying much attention to the road. He's far too busy grinning at me. Still, there are unlikely to be any other vehicles. Another vehicle pulls around a curve in front of us. Davenport swerves abruptly and we career off the side of the road, straight into a large oak tree. Davenport bangs his head on the steering wheel and is knocked unconscious. I am unharmed, but smoke is rising up from the mangled engine in front of us. The vehicle is a write-off. Worse still, I recognize the other car. I need to get away from here. I scrabble out of the passenger seat, but it is too late. The second vehicle has pulled up behind us, and the black rock have climbed out onto the road. I reach for Buchanan's revolver. "I wouldn't if I were you," the dark-eyed man informs me, before I can grab the gun. He may be missing a finger, but he has several other digits wrapped around the hilt of his revolver. "Leave the gun, there's a good girl." He smiles coldly, and I do as I am instructed. "My friends and I have been looking everywhere for you," he says. So that's it. I am now a prisoner of the Black Rock. I wish I could say I was impressed, but they don't even have a secret hideout. We have had to make do with an old miner's cottage. Bentnose and Mr. Squint bundled me into the back of the car at the scene of the accident. Missing Finger then drove us off-road until we found a set of derelict buildings to hole up in. Nobody bothered to check whether poor old Charlie Davenport was all right. I don't think he was seriously injured, thankfully, but the car won't be going anywhere. I wonder if he is insured. The cottage proves a suitably bleak location for an interrogation. I am glad I don't feel the cold. The wind from the moors whistles through the broken windows and straight up my dress. This used to be a mining area, but the work dried up and the houses were abandoned. Now the buildings are being put to another, more sinister use. The man with the missing finger has identified himself as Jonathan Mannheim. He doesn't bother to introduce Bentnose or Mr. Squint. Henchmen are rarely afforded the privilege of first names. "Well, Miss Shagwell, you've led us a merry dance," Mannheim says, his black eyes flashing with barely controlled anger. "You should not have interfered. But you may yet escape with your neck, if you tell us where you've hidden that notebook." The two henchmen have already frisked me. Their hands are rough and clumsy, and Bentnose spends rather too long examining the front of my dress. "It's not down there," I assure him coldly. "Just doing my job," he mutters, reluctantly lifting his eyes. Unlike his master, Bend-Nose has the trace of an accent. That is to say, he is not English. Or Scottish, come to that. Austrian, if I'm not very much mistaken. So, if I tell you where the notebook is, you'll let me go? Mannheim smiles grimly, but shakes his head. It's not quite as simple as that, my dear. We can't have you shooting your mouth off. But we won't kill you. We'll just put you out of action for a few days. By the time anyone finds you here, we'll be long gone. Put me out of action? I don't like the sound of that. Sorry, no deal. Mannheim sighs loudly. You are a tiresome woman. Do I have to descend to vulgar threats? Please do. I could do with a laugh. Very well. If you do not tell me where the notebook is, Herman here will cut off one of your fingers. Herman? So, Bent-Nose does have a name after all. He'll get a shock if he does, I laugh. An electric shock, in fact. It is almost worth letting him do it, just to see the look on his ugly face. I am glad you are amused. Very well. Herman! Bent-Nose produces a pair of pruning clippers from his pocket and lurches menacingly towards me. All right, I say, before he can set to work. I'll tell you where the notebook is. It's in my satchel in the backseat of Charlie Davenport's car. If you'd taken a look before we left, you'd already have found it. Mannheim regards me suspiciously. I'm not sure I believe you. You can always go and look. Very well, but if you're lying to me... Then you'll chop off one of my fingers. Yes, I get it. Herman, lock her up in the coal cellar. We'll return to the road to recover the notebook. And then we will come back and make sure Miss Shagwell is put out of action permanently. I give him a quick wink. In your dreams, honey. One of the great things about henchmen is that they tend not to be terribly bright. It doesn't matter what century you are in or what nationality you are dealing with. It is always the same. Not an ounce of common sense between them. Yes, tying somebody up and locking them in a small room with no windows does sound like a sensible proposition. But it's also sensible to have a proper look around the place first, to make sure there is nothing in there that might help someone escape. Luckily, these two idiots don't even bother to come into the cellar. I am shoved unceremoniously down a short flight of stairs, and the door slams shut behind me. My arms and legs are tied behind my back. I switch to night vision and have a good look around. The interior of the cellar is piled high with goodies. The miners may have abandoned the cottages, but they have left behind a fair old stock. It is mostly mining equipment, and happily, this includes several sticks of dynamite. I may be trussed up like a chicken, but I can still blow the hell out of the cellar door. First things first, though. I flip myself over and kick a low shelf, sending a couple of jam jars crashing to the ground. I maneuver myself around, grab a few shards of glass, and in moments my wrists are free. I am getting really good at this sort of thing. Another few seconds and my legs are untied as well. I pull the gag from my mouth, lift myself to my feet, and grasp a stick of dynamite from a box on the shelf. I tear off the wrapping and mould the stick into a ball, which I thrust into the lock at the top of the stairs. Then I grab a fuse and insert it into the dough. A 30-second fuse by the looks of it. I could light the end using static electricity from my fingertips, but there is a box of matches on the shelf. There is no need to show off. Mannheim and his cronies have only just driven away, I hang on a few minutes until the car is out of earshot. Then I blow the bloody door off. It is a tricky business using dynamite in an enclosed space, but I have been taught by the best. My old friend Gelignite Jill may have been a dirty, stinking traitor, but she knew how to blow a door without killing herself. I am not quite so skilled. The ceiling collapses on top of me. But I have balled myself up properly, and the damage to my hardware is minimal. I have been attacked by dinosaurs. An imploding roof is nothing. Free at last, I think. Of course, I am now covered head to foot in plaster, but that is a small price to pay. I find a bundle of clothes in one of the other cottages. None of them suit me. More corsets and long dresses, but I will have to make do. After a run of incredibly bad luck, things are starting to go my way. There is an abandoned bicycle in an outhouse. The tyres are flat, but a bit of bone crunching won't kill me. It is not as if I can move anyway in this damned corset. I jump on the bike and head off across country in the opposite direction from the car. Better to avoid the roads, I think. My internal compass can act as a guide. But should I return to the inn or find somewhere to hide? I take a chance and head for the inn. It is nearly dark when I pull up at the 36 steps. The building is shrouded in darkness, and the front door is on its hinges. The place has been trashed. Frosted glass is scattered across the entrance hall. Not content with chasing after me, the Black Rock have returned to check up on Douglas Buchanan. There is no sign of the Scotsman. If he had any sense, he will have fled at the first sound of trouble. I should have left him the revolver. I linger for a moment in the reception area. I have been on the run for too long. I can't keep running. I will have to take the bull by the horns, if that's the right cliché, and confront the Black Rock head-on. Better to do it on home turf, though. Back to London, I think, and damn the consequences. A turned-up collar and some heavily disguised hair get me to the capital safely. I consult my A to Z, hop on the London Underground, cursing briefly when I discover the Northern Line hasn't been built yet, and soon find myself outside a sombre multi-storey building on Victoria Street. The commissionaire greets me with some suspicion, but when I ask for the colonel, I am quickly shown up to an office on the 3rd floor. A monocled man rises up to greet me from a leather chair. He is in his late 30s, a severe-looking chap with a thin face and a clipped moustache. "Miss Shagwell," he says, "I've been expecting you." He gestures for me to sit, and takes a moment to enjoy my confusion. "A rather dour Scotsman came to my door this morning," he explains eventually. "He delivered a notebook written by a Mr. Robert Ashcroft." I blink in surprise. Douglas came all the way here, to London. "On the first train, apparently." The colonel sits back in his chair and regards me for a moment. His expression is unreadable. "He told you what happened?" "Yes. We've been aware for some time of a group of foreign agents operating in and around London. We weren't quite sure what they were up to." He pulls out the notebook from a drawer in his desk. "It's all in there," I say. "Have you had time to decode it?" Not everyone has access to my sophisticated decryption software. The colonel nods smugly. "I did it myself half an hour ago. It's a simple substitution cipher." I sit back in my chair. "So, you know everything then. The plot to assassinate Archduke Leopold. And the second scheme, to steal naval secrets from your Anglo-French conference." "According to the late Mr. Ashcroft." The man's fingers drum idly on the top of the notebook. "I hate to speak ill of the dead, but Ashcroft was never the most reliable of men. A bit of a fantasist, I'm afraid to say. He didn't fantasize being shot in the stomach, though, did he? I say. And I've had first-hand experience of the Black Rock. Their man Mannheim is a nasty piece of work. And he can pass himself off as an Englishman. If anyone can infiltrate your talks, he can. The Colonel shakes his head firmly. I assure you, young lady, we have a ring of steel around that meeting. No one can get in or out without my say-so. No, in my considered opinion, this is all so much hot air. What I am really interested in, Miss Shagwell, is you. He leans forward. What is your interest in this? We have no record of you. You were not registered in the last census. You seem to have appeared out of thin air. And you come straight here and ask for me by name. He purses his lips thinly. And nobody knows my name. It's difficult to explain. And then there's that bizarre capsule in the basement of Ashcroft's apartment block. I've seen the photographs. It looks like something out of H.G. Wells. I lift an eyebrow. That may not be far from the truth. The Colonel sits back in his chair and regards me coolly. You see why I have some difficulty accepting your story. Douglas must have verified most of it. Mr. Buchanan seems a decent sort, the Colonel concedes, for a Scotsman. But he only knew what you told him. For all I know, you could have created this notebook yourself, or at least forced Ashcroft to write it for you. You could be working for this Black Rock organization. And as for this fanciful notion of Archduke Leopold being assassinated... I bring a hand to my mouth to suppress a chuckle. A newspaper vendor is calling out the latest headlines in the street below. Open the window, I suggest, nodding to the street behind him. My hearing is much better than his. The Colonel frowns but stands up and does as I ask. The voice of the news vendor fills the air. Read all about it! Trans-Uranian Archduke assassinated! Threat of war increases! The monocle drops from the Colonel's eye. There is a knock on the door, and a young woman bustles into the room. She is young and vaguely pretty, but has a nervous, high-pitched voice. Sir Vincent, I've just taken a call from Whitehall. The most terrible thing has happened. I've heard. How did the newspapers get hold of it before I did? He waves the secretary away and picks up the telephone. You'll have to forgive me, Miss Shagwell. I have important matters to attend to. You should return to Ashcroft's flat. I've squared everything with the police, but don't stray too far. I will want to speak with you again. But what about the conference? Leave that to the professionals. This is a matter of national security. I stare back at him, open-mouthed, unwilling to leave. But his secretary is surprisingly insistent. Honestly, I am probably the most useful person in the whole of England right now. I could recognize Mannheim at the conference and prevent the secrets being stolen. But no, I am an unknown quantity, so I have to be bundled away from everything. Isn't that typical? Oh well, I have given them the warning. It is up to the Colonel to sort it all out. I'll head back to Knightsbridge and hop straight into the chronocapsule. Home in time for tea, with any luck. The police are packing up and preparing to leave the building. The murder of Robert Ashcroft is being hushed up, on the orders of the Colonel. Nobody shows any interest in me. They must have been given the nod from on high that I wasn't involved. That just leaves the Black Rock, though by the sounds of it they are too busy with other matters to think about pursuing me right now. I wonder if they ever intended to come back to that cottage. They were probably happy just to leave me there. When they found out the satchel was empty, they must have stopped off at the inn, on the off chance that I might have left the notebook there, and then caught the overnight train to London. Perhaps they came down on the same train as Buchanan. And now Archduke Leopold of Transurania is dead, and a set of top-secret naval documents are about to be stolen. Will history change, I wonder? A royal assassination was the catalyst for the Great War, but this is the wrong Archduke. If Germany gets hold of the Allied naval secrets, it will give them a huge advantage. World War I really could be over by Christmas. That might not be such a bad thing, if it saves millions of lives. But if history changes, I will never have been built. How can I be here at all? My circuits are overheating just thinking about it. I nip into the flat from the second-floor window. Ashcroft's body has long since been carted off to the mortuary, but there are still bloodstains on the carpet. I hop down the stairs to the basement, and am relieved to find the chronocapsule exactly where I left it. The damn thing is too big to move, but nothing has been tampered with. The replacement time rotor is still in position on the main panel. I know exactly where I am going to stick that when I return to the present day. I am getting fed up with all this time-travelling malarkey. Professor Llewellyn will be lucky to get a job on the Isle of Wight ferry by the time I've finished with him. The Isle of Wight ferry? My God! IOWF 1430, that's it! That's what the code means. That is their escape route. Ashcroft did know what he was talking about after all. The words at the back of the notebook weren't encrypted, they were just abbreviated. The Isle of Wight ferry. Now, if only I can work out the significance of the 38... Footsteps are hurrying towards the front of the apartment block. Somebody is approaching the building. There is a loud rap on the door. Should I answer it, I wonder? If I hadn't picked up that telephone a few days back, I might never have got into this mess. But there is nothing sinister in the knock. I skip up from the cellar to the main hall and glimpse a familiar figure through the frosted glass. "Douglas!" I exclaim with delight, opening the front door. The hairy Scotsman has followed me all the way here. He must have seen the address in the front of Ashcroft's book. "It's Mr. Buchanan," he says testily, his expression as dour as ever. Actually, he looks more worried than dour. "What is it?" I ask. "I've seen him, lass. I've seen Mr. Mannheim." "Seen him? Where?" "I walked up to Whitehall after I spoke to that colonel of yours. I wanted to take a look at the people arriving at the conference, and I saw Mr. Mannheim step out of a car. He was dressed as an admiral. He's already at the conference." By the time Buchanan and I arrive at Whitehall, everything is over. We have had to jog the whole way. The Scotsman is surprisingly fit. It must be all that hiking across the moors. A mustachioed policeman is on guard at the gate and stops us getting close. But I see the colonel heading out of the building and I yell across the courtyard to him. Now, miss," the constable warns me. "We'll have none of that." I step back and lift up my hands. The colonel has spotted me and is already on his way over. "It's all right, constable. Let her through." The policeman steps back. "What did I tell you?" the colonel beams. "Everything went like clockwork. France and Britain have a united and secure naval policy." Buchanan shakes his head. "Aye, and that Prussian gentleman just walked off with the entire set of plans." "Don't be absurd. I have the plans here." The Colonel gestures to his briefcase. I will return them to the Admiralty in person. And I assure you, Mr. Buchanan saw Mannheim arrive, I tell him. He was dressed as an admiral. He had a moustache and a pair of glasses, but Douglas saw the missing finger. Good God! The monocle drops from the Colonel's eye. Mr. Buchanan, are you absolutely sure? I'm sure, sir. For once the Colonel is flustered. But he couldn't have copied the documents. I have all the copies here. They didn't leave the room. He probably has a photographic memory, I suggest. People in his line of work often do. The Colonel blinks. If there's even a chance of that being true, we have to stop him. These papers cannot be allowed to get out of the country. But where could he have gone? I have the answer to that. That code in the notebook. IOWF. It's for the Isle of Wight ferry. He'll be heading for Portsmouth, and the ferry must leave at 2:30 this afternoon. It is a reasonable assumption, at least. The Colonel replaces his monocle and pulls out a watch from his waistcoat pocket. It's 1:45 now. We'll never get down to Portsmouth by 2:30. We may not need to. Douglas, tell the Colonel what you told me. Buchanan nods. I have an uncle who lives in Ventnor, on the far side of the Isle of Wight. He runs a public house that backs onto the English Channel. It's a good few years since I last saw it, but it's got something in common with my inn up in Scotland. We've had a good laugh about it over the years. There are 38 steps leading down to the sea, so he calls it... Good Lord, the Colonel says. The 38 steps. Well, no. Actually, it's called Sea View. But some of the locals do occasionally refer to it as the 38 steps. It's the perfect escape route, I say. They cross to the Isle of Wight and meet up at the inn. There'll be a rowing boat at the bottom of the steps, and they'll rendezvous with their accomplices out at sea. A submarine, I shouldn't wonder. And the plans will be in the hands of the Prussian High Command by tea time. The Colonel glowers. That has to be prevented at all costs. The police have mobilised by the time we reach Portsmouth. The ferry is long gone, but a motor launch carries us across the Solent. The Colonel has given Buchanan a revolver to replace the one I borrowed from him, and the Scotsman has accompanied us across to the island. He looks rather dashing with a gun in his hand, and the wind whipping up around his kilt. I still haven't managed to see if he's wearing any underwear. I make a point of sitting opposite him on the boat, but he keeps his legs together the whole time. He's such a girl. But perhaps he'll trip up when he gets off at the other end. We circle the island, avoiding the crowds in Cowes, and pull up on the east coast. A local constable carries us by motor car the last few miles to the pub. It'll be good to see Uncle Hamish again, Buchanan says, as we motor along the ragged road. Always assuming he's not in league with them, the Colonel mutters darkly. A small van full of policemen is following behind us, but they have been instructed to hold back so that we don't arrive en masse. Our car makes good time, but before we come into view of the inn, there is a sudden loud bang and the vehicle veers off the road. What the dickens? The Colonel exclaims. The constable at the wheel is struggling to keep control of the car. All 4 tyres have ruptured simultaneously. Somebody has laid out a set of tacks on the road. The policeman slams on the brakes as we thunder towards a huge horse-chestnut tree. I can't believe I am going to be involved in 2 road accidents in less than 3 days. The driver does his best, swinging the car to the left, missing the tree, and finally bringing the vehicle to a stuttering halt at the side of the road. "Is everyone all right?" the Colonel asks, looking back at us from the passenger seat. "Aye," says Buchanan, dusting down his sporran to my left. "You'll have to continue on foot, sir," the driver tells the Colonel. "The tyres have been ripped to shreds." "It's not that far from here," the Scotsman reassures us. "About half a mile, if memory serves." We get out of the car and hit the road. Buchanan and I set off at a steady trot. The Colonel has no trouble keeping up, much to my surprise. I had taken him to be a desk man. Clearly there is more to him than meets the eye. He even manages to keep his monocle in place. The inn is shut up for the afternoon. It is a heavy stone building with a whitewashed front. Buchanan taps on the windows, but there is no response. "Probably gone shopping," he thinks. "I hope so, for his sake." The Colonel lifts his revolver. "Let's try round the back," I suggest. The roar of the sea is ever present, but other noises are blending in. Footsteps on stone. I recognise those size 11 boots. "We're too late," I say. "They're already halfway down the steps." "Don't worry, lass," Buchanan insists. "I won't let them get away." He leaps over the gate and sprints across the back lawn. The hem of his kilt flutters in the wind, but not quite enough. I jump across the fence into the back garden and follow him across the lawn towards the sea. The Prussians are already at the bottom of the 38 steps. Bentnose and Mr. Squint are climbing aboard a small wooden boat. Mannheim is holding it steady for them. Buchanan aims his revolver and takes a pot shot at the trio, but the wind carries it wide. Mannheim casts off the rope, scrambles onto the boat, and gives us a cheery wave. "Nice to have met you," he calls out happily. I have come to a halt at the top of the steps. Buchanan is already clumping down ahead of me. I might be able to catch the boat if he gets out of the way, but the Scotsman doesn't give me the chance. He pelts down the remaining steps 3 at a time. He really is super fit. It must be all that porridge. I follow behind as best I can, but it is Buchanan who reaches the sea line first and launches himself into the water. I have to stop for a second to twist my thumb and activate my lockdown mode. Mannheim takes a quick shot at Buchanan as he swims across to the boat. They are at close quarters now, and I see the Scotsman flinch as he grabs hold of the launch and rocks it with all his might. Bentnose, who is still standing up, falls off into the water while Mr. Squint tries to steady the vehicle. Buchanan is doing a good job of unsteadying it, however, and the second henchman loses his footing and plunges headfirst into the icy depths. A bullet whistles past my ear. The Colonel has reached the top of the steps and has opened fire with his revolver. He has more luck than Buchanan. A direct hit. Mannheim lets out a cry and topples forward into the sea. His body hits the water with a loud splosh, and he sinks like a stone. I am more worried about my brave Scotsman. Buchanan is struggling to hold on to the side of the boat. I think he has taken a bullet to the shoulder. All at once he lets go of the side and disappears beneath the waves. I hurl myself forward, my legs scraping against the rocks as I hit the water. The waves are choppy, but I don't need to breathe, so I disappear under the surface and kick out in the direction of the boat. The 2 henchmen are still alive. Bentnose has grabbed hold of Buchanan and is trying to pull him down. I grab the little maggot around the neck and throttle him, expelling the air in his lungs and kicking him downwards. Nobody tries to kill a friend of mine while he's defending his country. The Colonel takes another shot at Mr. Squint, and more blood obstructs my view under the water. I grab hold of a hairy leg. It is Buchanan. I look up and get a full view of his hairy backside. My God, he really is a Scotsman. I slide up his body, grab his waist, and quickly drag him up to the surface. He chokes and splutters, struggling to breathe through a mouthful of salt water. I toss him over my shoulder and, awkwardly, propel us both across to the shore. Behind me, the empty boat drifts away into the sea. 3 bodies lie face down in the water. Mr. Squint, Bent Nose, and Jonathan Mannheim. Whatever naval secrets Mannheim had stored in his head, they have died with him. The Colonel helps me pull Buchanan back onto the rocks. I drag myself after him, but trip up on a barnacle. All at once, I find myself sprawling on top of the hairy Scotsman. The bedraggled figure looks up at me in surprise. "You saved my life!" He coughs again and wipes the water from his mouth. I flash him a grin. We all make mistakes, Mr. Buchanan. I am dripping wet, my skirts clinging tightly to the contours of my legs, and I can feel something rather hard pressing against my stomach. Buchanan looks down in embarrassment. "Sorry, lass. I think the buckle of my sporrans got caught in your skirts." He slides a hand down to untangle himself. I bet you say that to all the girls. He tries not to wince at the pain in his shoulder as he frees himself from my crotch. "Only the bonny ones," he says. All at once his face erupts into a smile. It is an astonishing sight, a beam of light radiating from that absurdly glum face. I take my chance and lean in to kiss him. Above us the Colonel coughs, but I don't care. I have done my duty. He can give us 5 minutes. I pull back and Buchanan looks up at me in surprise. "You're a strange one," he admits with a hint of disapproval. "There's no meat on you. But all the same, I think I could get to like you." He reaches up to return my kiss. His hairy beard envelops my face, and I let out a gasp of pleasure. "Oh, Douglas!" That was The 38 Steps, written by Samantha Faulkner, narrated by Alison Campbell. Copyright Samantha Faulkner 2021. For news of other releases, visit the website fembotsally.com.